Big gun, big turret. It makes my day, punk.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Small Soldier. If this is your first time here and you're interested in military modeling, please consider subscribing, hit the bell notification, give me a thumbs up, and share this video with others in this great modeling community. Before we begin, I'd like you to go to Evan's channel, and that is Panzermeister36. He's building a similar T-34 122, only his is the World War II version. So I'll leave a link in the description below and you can check that out as well. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Ryefield. If you're a YouTuber, check this fellow out. He has tons of great content that will help you grow your channel. So I'll leave a link in the description below and you can check him out as well. Now without further ado,
let's start.
For sure.
Good day to you in the land of YouTube. Hope you're all doing well. In today's video, I'll be showing you how I use chipping fluid on a 3-tone camouflage. I'll be presenting this painting and weathering tutorial as a multi-part series, with each episode featuring a particular step in the painting or weathering procedures. One thing I like to do before proceeding with the base coat is paint all areas that I feel might be problematic later in the painting procedure black. This just hides any kind of unseen bare plastic or areas that you might miss when you're painting the camouflage colors on the vehicle. For this type of chipping method, I prefer a lacquer-based undercoat. This provides a very strong base for the upcoming abrasive chipping techniques that I'll be using. If you're wondering what I'm using to secure the tank to the piece of wood, I've just used a piece of blue tack, and then I've pushed the vehicle or tank or parts or whatever it is that you're spraying onto that, and that gives you a cheap and easy method for holding pieces for when you're spraying them, and that way you don't have to handle them at all. In this segment here, I'm using a rusty red primer base coat for the added on plate armor that they would have added to the T-34 turret section. And now looking at the video, I'm not quite certain I've got this part right. I probably should have primed it all in a reddish brown as opposed to having the lower portion green, because why would it still be green? They would have probably primed the whole thing with a brown. So anyway, you know, live and learn, and it'll be fine in the end, because I'll fix it up and add different filters and what have you to it, and yeah, and you probably won't even notice the green and the brown mixed together. And the last step before chipping fluid is to give the whole model a good coat of flat varnish. This just helps to seal in that base color and give another protective coat so that the paint doesn't wear off in the next procedure. If you've never tried chipping before, I would suggest taking an old scrap model or just a piece of plastic card and putting your materials on it and play around and see what you get. And it's better to make mistakes on this than to do it on your finished model, and you'll get an idea of what you can produce. Something else I'd suggest is surrounding yourself with really good reference materials or books. Of course, there's lots of really good YouTube videos out there for reference as well, but visual inspiration is always good to have on your desktop with you at all times. Alright, now that we have our chipping sample complete and lots of reference material, let's get going. As you can see, this has been chipped off camera, and this is roughly about 4 hours of work. I didn't want to bore you with the entire procedure, showing you every little step along the way. It would have been probably too long of a video at that point. But here you can see some of the fine chipping that you can achieve with this technique and some of the wear patterns that you can also achieve. The first step, obviously, in this procedure is to lay the chipping fluid down or hairspray over your model first. And you can see here I was just blowing off the model with a bit of air just to get any dust or debris off. And I'm putting on 2 light coats of the chipping fluid and drying each coat in between with the hairdryer. The first color added is Desert Sand, and that'll be the base tone for the entire model, with 2-color camouflage going over top later. And what you want to do here is get an even coat over the entire surface without going too heavy. Just go light and keep building it up as you go. And depending on how much wear you want and where you want the wear, you will add more paint in those areas or less paint. Alright, once the paint has had a little time to dry, I like to work in a small area at a time and just kind of work it with a stiff brush in a poking, swirly kind of motion. And here I'm just using a toothbrush to moisten the area. And you'll notice that the paint slowly starts to come off. If you go too aggressive right off the bat, you might remove more than you want to, and then you need to go back in and add more paint. And you'll see later on in the painting procedure I have to do that in some sections, just areas I didn't particularly like, so I went back and fixed those. And you can see it's quite wet here. I find the ammo paint takes a little more work to get it to chip than my preferred method with Tamiya paints. They seem to come off a little easier. I think the ammo paints have a bit more of a skin to them, so you have to work them just a little harder and add a little more water, in my opinion. It seems to get them working the best. When you're chipping your vehicles, try to remember logical areas where chipping might occur, where crews climb up or are standing a long time, or around hatches, boxes, the back ends of tanks, areas like that. And depending on the combat life of the vehicle and the conditions that it's in, you'll get more chipping in certain situations and less than others. If you've noticed, I've been using different size brushes and different styles of brushes to create these chips, and that just helps give a variety of different marks and abrasions to the chipping. Here you'll see I'm using a needle to create scratches in the side, and that can be a very effective tool as well. You can also use a sharpened toothpick to create the same type of marks. Ah, there it is. Speak of the devil.
For the devils! The devils!
Ah, face painting, model painting. It's all in the same realm. Now, when I started this project, I found very few photographs of the actual tank. There are some, but they're all in museums and that kind of thing, so it's hard to tell what this tank actually looked like in combat, and I could not find one photograph anywhere of it in combat or in the 73 war, which I'm kind of depicting here, the Yom Kippur War. So in my mind, it's almost like a paper panzer, and I'm treating it that way. So as a result, I'm going to be taking a little bit of artistic liberties with this and chipping the heck out of it, because in my mind, if you've got a tank that served from the 50s to the 80s, it's probably going to be pretty beaten up, and painted over several times, so you're going to see all sorts of different colors coming through those chips. And being a desert environment, I would imagine it's pretty abrasive, the windstorms and the sand, so I would think this would get pretty beat up. Anyway, I'm treating it that way, and the goal here is to ultimately show you how I create chips using chipping solution. Now, I've removed the tip of the airbrush for more accurate spraying, and what that does is it directs the paint more into a closer zone as opposed to spraying it out in more of a fan pattern. The only thing is you have to be ultra careful that you don't get in too close or bend your needle by hitting it on something. So it's a little dangerous, but in my opinion, you get in there and you can get a little more tight spraying patterns this way. Here I'm spraying on the first camel pattern, and I'm trying to be as accurate as I can as far as the illustration is concerned, although again it's hypothetical, I think, because again there's no existing photographs showing these tanks in combat with this type of camouflage, so I'm kind of taking some liberties as well with this camo. Again, going as close as I can to the illustrations that were provided, but you know, being a little bit loose with it as well. And now for the third and final camouflage color. And again, I'm following the illustration. As far as historical accuracy, again, I have no idea. This is just what I'm going off of from information I have. So hopefully it looks okay in the end, and I think it will. I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out so far, and I think you'll agree after I've chipped everything up that this technique works pretty well. When spraying a freehand camo pattern, your best bet is to, of course, practice, but if you turn your air pressure down on your compressor, I like to spray at about 10 psi, 7 psi, and thinning the paint back to probably 70 or 80%. Then get in just a little bit closer than you normally would, and you should be able to get a fairly tight spray pattern. Knowing your paint and your thinning ratios though too really helps. So now that both camo colors are painted on and I've got the chipping solution underneath both of them, I can go in and start chipping both colors and creating the illusion of fading or chipped top colors coming through on that desert sand color below, and also from the previous chipping technique showing the green coming through the desert sand, you're getting like a 4-color kind of combination of chipping coming through. And this is just a matter of, again, looking at your reference and deciding where crew would walk and where the most prominent areas of wear may occur. Like I said previously, there are areas here that I wasn't totally happy with, and those will be fixed in upcoming episodes with different techniques, and I actually did go back and add more paint here and there on certain in certain areas that I found just weren't effective, and the chipping just wasn't quite to my liking. So if you end up making some chips that you're not happy with, there are ways of fixing it, and it's just a matter of going back in and using a sponge or a paintbrush and adding those chips back in to correct what you've previously messed up or thought you messed up. To make the corrections on the camouflage colors, I thinned them down about 50% and went back in and tried to recreate those areas a little bit and build up the color a little bit to get rid of some of the chipping that wasn't desirable. Build these areas up in thin layers. It's better to use thin paint than thick, and by also doing this you'll be able to recreate areas of heavy wear as opposed to actual chips. Once the larger chipped areas are complete, I go back in with a moistened toothpick and sort of rub on the side as opposed to the point, and this will almost dry brush the area and give you really fine, almost microscopic chipping. And again, make sure you're placing these in logical areas. I switched to the needle here. I wanted to get a little more aggressive on the paint and create more of a scuffed look. Using the moistened toothpick is the final step for creating the chipping. I really like using this technique for a three-tone camouflage. So give it a try, see what you think, leave a comment below and let me know how you did. Well, that's it for this one. Thanks friends for sticking around and watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you never miss an episode. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share this video with others in this great modeling community. See you soon.